DeShawn Taylor. I am CEO and founder of Health Justice MD. I help organizations apply a justice lens to the work that they're doing to advance reproductive health and rights. I am also the author of Undue Burden, a Black woman physician on being Christian and pro-abortion in the reproductive justice movement. And I am coming on today to discuss the anniversary of the Supreme Court Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. And let's start with some historical context here. So in 1973, the Supreme Court provided a very life-altering decision in January of 1973 that legalized abortion in the United States across the country. And in that decision, they also did something that set us up for some of the failures that we saw over the past 50 years in terms of the framework. So the Roe v. Wade decision provided the legal landscape for abortion care through the 14th Amendment, which was individuals' right to privacy. But what they also did was they created a system to guard the government's right to look after the perinatal life of the pregnant person. And with this, to temper the rights between the state's interest and a pregnant person's safety, quote unquote, health and safety, they created the trimester system. And so the trimester system was created to determine a time in pregnancy at which the state's interest in a pregnant person's life could be enforced. And the medical community incorporated and adapted this and taught this as if it was a medical construct. I graduated medical school in 2001. I finished my OBGYN residency in 2005 and a family planning fellowship in 2007. And I did not learn that the trimester system, it was a legal construct until a couple of years ago. And I was mind blown learning this information. And it's really important that people understand this as we move forward in envisioning a bolder system and access to abortion, that we have been operating on a system that was medicalized, but it was a legal framework first. And so it was not based in science. And we tried to create scientific understanding to continue to move forward and use this system in a meaningful way. And so when we know that where someone is in pregnancy in terms of how many weeks pregnant they are is arbitrary, then doesn't it become easier to start to look at each individual pregnant person in their circumstance and see the humanity in them and trust them to be able to make the best decision for themselves and their families? That we don't get to impose our own ideology or views or ideals on that person, because everything we knew to be true is not. And so since the Supreme Court Dobbs decision in June of 2022 that overturned Roe v. Wade, our country has been plunged into chaos. There is a whole region of the United States that doesn't have, where the people who live there do not have access to abortion. There are regions of this country where obstetricians, gynecologists are leaving the states that they practice in because they cannot practice pregnancy care safely. Should someone have the great fortune to make it to term in a pregnancy, 40 weeks is a long time in a person's life. A person's life does not stop because they became pregnant. Their circumstances surrounding their decision to continue the pregnancy may change. Their opportunities that were provided to them that they thought were going to be there, their relationship, their job, their housing situation. So many things change during the course of 40 weeks of a person's life. We don't just, put the pregnant person in a bubble and then, at the end of the pregnancy and they deliver and now they're a human being again. So we have to trust people to be the engineers of their own lives and their destinies. Make no mistake that the ability to control our fertility is directly linked to not only our ability to survive, but to thrive, to our economic opportunities, to the sustainability of our families, to the smooth operations of our communities. It's all intertwined. And so today, I have 3 things for you that I want you to do to really help move the abortion discussion forward, because we cannot continue to try to move backwards. We cannot continue to resurrect the Roe framework. The Roe framework did what it needed to do in 1973. And honestly, it should have been a scaffold for which we would build from and not rely on as heavily as we did when it fell almost 50 years later. Politicians and anti-abortion extremists are not the only ones harming us. We are harming each other with silence, shame, and the stigma that we carry and we project on others. So the first thing that I am asking you to do is be unapologetically pro-abortion. Now, I cannot say how many times that I've heard or I've seen someone follow up a person's declaration of being pro-abortion with, "No one's pro-abortion, I'm pro-choice." Why aren't you pro-abortion? I'm pro-abortion. I'm not knocking on people's door handing out abortions. I'm not recruiting people to my clinic to have an abortion. I am here to provide a service that people need. Just like I provide birth control, just like I provide gender-affirming hormone therapy, just like your surgeon removes your appendix when you have appendicitis. Like, the reason that we have to say we are pro-abortion is because this word, this medical term, this medical procedure has been politicized. And people who need abortions and people who love people who need abortions and people who have had abortions need to know that they are not alone and that they have people who care about them and are in this fight with them. And understand that some people don't actually have a choice. Being pro-choice and operating from a pro-choice framework is a privilege. Oppressed people oftentimes don't have the conditions to exercise choices. And so in that, I want you to interrogate your own views on this. And if you are someone who says, I am pro-choice, not pro-abortion, I really want you to sit with why you feel so strongly about that. I also hear a lot of people being pro-choice, but what is the but about? Pro-choice, but you don't think people should use abortion as birth control? Why does that matter to you if someone would do that? Now, I would say the average person who is seeking abortion care is not thinking to themselves, oh my, I am going to use abortion for birth control. However, honestly, abortion is a form of birth control, right? A person doesn't want to be pregnant. But again, ask yourself, why does that matter to you? Each time a person is pregnant, having an abortion is safer than continuing the pregnancy. The United States is a dangerous place to be pregnant. More dangerous than all of the so-called developed nations in this world, and even worse than some of the so-called non-developed. How dare we tell a person that they should stay pregnant and assume those risks? I've heard people say they're pro-choice, but why are people having multiple abortions? Again, why do you care? Why is it your business? However, the other piece of this is, again, each time a person is pregnant, having an abortion is safer to their health than continuing the pregnancy. The other piece of it is some people aren't in situations where they can exercise consent to sex, practice contraception, or negotiate their partner using condoms. And so this judgy view does not take into account that there are coercive practices going on and people don't always have agency over their bodies. The second thing that I want you to do to advance abortion in a safe narrative is say the word abortion. Many of us advocates were so excited when President Biden finally said abortion. Do you know how far that went for all of the millions of people in this country who have had and will have abortions? It goes so far in combating the silence, shame, and stigma. It outs you, so to speak, as a safe person. If you claim to be an ally and you do not say the word abortion and use all other constellations of words and phrases put together when you actually mean abortion, you are not the ally you think you are. And I want you to interrogate why you cannot or will not say the word abortion. Abortion is a medical term. We have spontaneous abortions, we have incomplete abortion, we have inevitable abortion, we have threatened abortion. Please say the word abortion when you mean abortion. It will go a long way in helping someone you love. And the third thing I asked for you on the anniversary of the fall of Roe and the loss of the federal protection to abortion care in this country is that I want you to be a safe person for someone to be able to talk to about their abortion. We all know and love someone who's had an abortion. 1 in 4 people with a uterus will have an abortion by the age of 45. So abortion is very common. There will be people who have multiple abortions. Most people who have abortions have had one already. And if you don't believe that you know or love someone who's had an abortion, then you are not a safe person for someone to disclose that information to. And I want you to really sit with it, think about why that's the case. Whether you would have an abortion or not, please let that go. Because if in 22 years of providing abortion care, I've had many people in my clinic who thought that they would never be that 1 in 4 to have an abortion, and then here they are in the clinic. So ultimately, whether you think you would make the decision to terminate a pregnancy or not when you find yourself unintentionally pregnant or with a bad diagnosis or with your health at risk, at the end of the day, just understand that abortion is normal, abortion is common, and we have a long way to go as advocates in creating an environment where people can decide if, when, and how they want to add to their families and raise their children. And it is up to us to hold our government officials accountable for creating those conditions, for actually following through the will of the majority of Americans who believe that abortion should be legal and that the decisions to have an abortion should not include political interference. And the way that we ensure this moving forward is, one, be unapologetically pro-abortion. Two, say the word abortion and talk about abortion. And three, be a safe person for people to come to and talk about their abortion experiences. I want to thank you for joining me today. We are in dark times, but I remain hopeful. And I want you to be hopeful and understand that you are the change that you want to see in the world, and that you have time, talents, and resources to contribute to this fight. You guys have a great rest of your week.